When did you realize cutting someone off saved your life? The email notification pinged at 2:47 a.m., and I should have ignored it. Should have rolled over and gone back to sleep instead of grabbing my phone with bleary eyes. But insomnia had been my companion for weeks, ever since the third job rejection in a row, and I'd developed this masochistic habit of doom-scrolling through my inbox when sleep wouldn't come. The sender's name made my stomach drop, marcus.chen.developer@gmail.com. Marcus Chen. My Marcus. My best friend since we were 8 years old, building pillow forts and later building our first websites together in his mom's basement. The guy who'd been my best man at my wedding to Sarah 3 years ago. The one person I trusted more than anyone else in the world. Except this email wasn't meant for me. Hey David, it read. Asterisk thanks for the heads up about the Cortec interview. Yeah, I made sure to mention Jake's reliability issues when their CTO called me for a reference. Told him about that time he supposedly missed the client presentation deadline, you know, the one where I actually submitted his work under my name lol. Should be enough to tank his chances. The position's perfect for me anyway, I literally gave you the idea for that machine learning algorithm they're looking for. Well, technically Jake gave it to me first, but what he doesn't know won't hurt him, right? Asterisk. My hand started shaking. Asterisk p.s. I planted the seed with Rachel at TechFlow about his attitude problems during our coffee meeting. She's pretty influential in hiring circles, so that should ripple out nicely. This is almost too easy, asterisk. I read it again. Then again. The words kept rearranging themselves, but the meaning stayed the same. Marcus, my Marcus, had been systematically destroying my career. Cortec had been my dream job. The interview had gone perfectly until the final round, when the CTO's demeanor shifted completely. He'd asked pointed questions about my work ethic, my ability to meet deadlines, whether I was truly committed to collaborative environments. I'd stumbled through answers, confused by the sudden hostility, watching my dream job slip away in real time. Now I knew why. I scrambled out of bed, Sarah stirring beside me as I grabbed my laptop. The email thread was longer than I'd initially seen. Much longer. I scrolled up, my heart hammering against my ribs as months of correspondence unfolded. David Rodriguez. I knew that name, he was a senior developer at Innovate Labs who I'd met at a few tech meetups. Apparently, he and Marcus had been conspiring for 8 months. Asterisk March 15th, Jake's working on some interesting AI applications. I'll keep you posted on anything worth borrowing. Asterisk. Asterisk April 3rd, convinced him to show me his portfolio during our weekly coffee. Screenshots attached. Think you can work with this? Asterisk. Asterisk May 22nd, he's applying to your company. Might want to give them a call about his performance issues. Asterisk. 8 months. 8 months of stolen ideas, sabotaged opportunities, and calculated betrayal. 8 months of me confiding in Marcus about my struggles, my rejections, my growing self-doubt, while he nodded sympathetically and offered to put in a good word wherever he could. The worst part wasn't even the career sabotage. It was the timestamp on the first email in the thread, March 10th, 2023. 3 days after I'd gotten promoted to senior engineer at my last job. 3 days after Marcus had taken me out to celebrate, buying rounds of drinks and toasting my success. He'd started planning my downfall the moment I'd achieved something he wanted. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone had wrapped steel cables around it and pulled tight. Sarah's hand touched my shoulder, her voice thick with sleep. Jake. What's wrong? You're hyperventilating. I couldn't answer. Couldn't explain that my entire professional life had been a lie orchestrated by the person I trusted most. Instead, I kept scrolling, driven by some sick need to understand the full scope of Marcus's betrayal. The emails painted a picture that made me nauseous. Every coffee meetup, every casual conversation about work, every moment I'd shared my ideas and struggles, Marcus had been taking notes. Literal notes, apparently, because attached to a June email was a document titled Jake's Projects and Contacts.docs. My hands trembled as I opened it. 43 pages. 43 pages of my life cataloged like I was some kind of research subject. My project ideas, ranked by commercial viability. Screenshots of my GitHub repositories. Names and contact information of every person in my professional network, complete with notes about their influence and susceptibility to suggestion. Under Sarah's photo, my wife's photo, Marcus had written, potential leverage if needed. Jesus Christ. The words escaped before I could stop them. Jake, you're scaring me. What is it? I turned the laptop toward her, pointing at her picture with a shaking finger. Sarah's face went pale as she read Marcus's clinical assessment of our relationship, asterisk Jake's obvious weakness. Very trusting, financially dependent on his success. Could be useful for emotional pressure if direct sabotage isn't sufficient, asterisk. That sick fuck, Sarah whispered, and I'd never heard her use that kind of language before. Jake, how long has this been going on? I was already scrolling backward, looking for the earliest emails. The thread went back further than I'd thought. Much further. September 2021. Almost 2 years. The first email was short, asterisk Dave, remember that networking event where you mentioned wanting to expand your team? My friend Jake might be perfect, but I'm starting to think he's not as reliable as I initially thought. Just wanted to give you a heads up before he applies anywhere, asterisk. September 2021. That was when I'd first started feeling like something was wrong in my career. When interviews that should have been slam dunk started going sideways. When people in the industry began treating me differently at networking events. When Marcus started being extra supportive, extra present, always ready with a shoulder to cry on when another opportunity fell through. I thought I was losing my mind. Started wondering if I really was as talented as I believed, if maybe I'd been coasting on unearned confidence. The rejections and cold shoulders had eaten away at my self-esteem until I'd begun questioning everything about myself. Marcus had been there for all of it. Patient, understanding Marcus, always ready with reassurance and advice. Don't take it personally, he'd say. The market's just tough right now. Something better will come along. And meanwhile, he'd been making sure nothing better ever would. I found the smoking gun in an email from January, asterisk the Synthex contract is worth $200,000. I made sure Jake's proposal got lost in their system, and mine went straight to the CEO. He still thinks it was a technical glitch. Sometimes I almost feel bad about how trusting he is, asterisk. $200,000. The Synthex project that had mysteriously disappeared from their servers, forcing me to scramble to recreate my proposal from memory. By the time I'd resubmitted, they'd already chosen another developer. Marcus had gotten that contract. Had celebrated with me when he'd landed it, buying dinner and commiserating about my bad luck. My phone buzzed. A text message. From Marcus, asterisk hey man, saw you were active on WhatsApp at 3 a.m. Everything okay? Want to grab coffee tomorrow and talk, asterisk. I stared at Marcus's text message, my skin crawling. Even now, even at 3 in the morning while I was discovering the full extent of his betrayal, he was monitoring my online activity. Watching me. How long had he been doing that? I scrolled back through our WhatsApp chat history with fresh eyes, looking for patterns I'd missed before. There they were, scattered throughout months of seemingly innocent conversations. Marcus always seemed to know when I was stressed before I told him. He'd text me right after difficult client calls, after late-night work sessions, after arguments with Sarah that I hadn't mentioned to anyone. He's been tracking you, Sarah said, reading over my shoulder. Her voice was flat, shocked. Jake, this is stalking. I opened my laptop's activity monitor and felt sick. There it was, remote access software I didn't remember installing. TrustedFriend.exe, running in the background, last accessed, 2 hours ago. Marcus had been watching my screen in real time. My fingers flew over the keyboard, checking my browser history, my email logs, my file access records. Everything. He'd seen everything. Every job application, every private conversation with Sarah, every Google search about why do I keep getting rejected for jobs, and am I losing my technical skills? He'd watched me doubt myself, watched me spiral into depression, and then swooped in to offer comfort for problems he created. The laptop webcam light wasn't on, but I slammed it shut anyway. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, asterisk saw you were on your laptop too. Seriously, insomnia's getting bad, huh? Maybe you should talk to someone about the anxiety. I know a good therapist, asterisk. I grabbed Sarah's phone and used it to check my cloud storage. My Google Drive, my GitHub repositories, my Dropbox, Marcus had access to all of it. Shared folders I'd created months ago for legitimate collaboration, back when I trusted him with my work. 27 projects, I whispered, scrolling through the access logs. He's downloaded 27 of my projects in the past 6 months. Sarah was already on her own laptop, typing furiously. I'm checking the business registration database. If he's been stealing your work. Her face went pale. Jake. Look at this. Chen Digital Solutions, LLC. Registered owner, Marcus Chen. Date of incorporation, March 18, 2023. The same week he'd started the email chain with David Rodriguez. Marcus hadn't just been sabotaging my career. He'd been building his own company on the foundation of my stolen work. I clicked through to his business website, and my stomach lurched. The portfolio section showcased 12 different projects. I recognized every single one. The machine learning algorithm for inventory optimization that I'd spent 4 months developing. The blockchain security protocol I designed for my master's thesis. Even the mobile app UI that I'd sketched out during our coffee meetings, thinking I was just brainstorming with a friend. All of it branded as Marcus's original work, complete with fake timestamps and fabricated client testimonials. Son of a bitch has been making money off your ideas, Sarah breathed. Jake, look at his client list. Synthex Corporation. Cortec Industries. TechFlow Dynamics. Every company that had rejected me had hired Marcus instead, paying him for solutions built on my stolen work. My phone buzzed with another text, asterisk you're not responding. Getting worried. I'm coming over, asterisk. The timestamp showed he'd sent it 30 seconds ago. We lived 20 minutes apart. He's coming here, I said, my voice cracking. Sarah, he's coming here right now. She was already dialing 911 when we heard a car door slam in our driveway. I looked out the window and saw Marcus's Honda Civic parked behind my car, blocking me in. He was just standing there in our driveway, looking up at our bedroom window. Even in the darkness, I could see him smiling. My phone lit up with one final message, asterisk I know you found the emails, Jake. We need to talk, asterisk. The next few hours blurred together like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The police took our statements, collected evidence from my laptop, and issued Marcus a restraining order after finding him still parked in our driveway at dawn, claiming he'd fallen asleep while waiting for me to come outside and talk. But the legal system moved slowly, and Marcus had 2 years' worth of stolen work already converted into legitimate-looking business assets. My word against his meticulously crafted paper trail. The problem, explained Detective Rivera 3 days later, is that most of your collaboration happened informally. Shared Google Drives, verbal agreements, friendly cooperation between colleagues. It's going to be nearly impossible to prove theft versus legitimate collaboration in court. She was right, and we all knew it. Marcus had been careful, methodical. Every piece of stolen work could be explained away as joint development or inspiration rather than outright theft. The sabotage emails were damning for my civil case, but they weren't criminal. Unethical, yes. Illegal? Barely. What about the stalking? Sarah asked. The remote access software. We're working on that angle, Rivera said, but her tone suggested it wasn't promising. The software was technically installed with system administrator privileges on your machine. If he can prove you gave him those credentials at some point for legitimate tech support. Of course. I remembered now, 8 months ago, when my laptop had been acting up, Marcus had offered to fix it remotely. I'd trusted him completely, watched him install what I'd assumed was standard diagnostic software. I'd handed him the keys to my entire digital life. The next week was a special kind of hell. I tried to focus on job applications, but every company I contacted seemed to already have opinions about me. The Whisper network in tech was small and efficient, and Marcus had spent 2 years poisoning it against me. Jake Martinez, said the HR manager at CloudSync Dynamics, my voice barely audible through the phone speaker. Oh, we've heard about your work. Unfortunately, we've also heard about some reliability concerns. Several people in the industry have mentioned issues with missed deadlines and collaborative challenges. Click. Dial tone. It was the same everywhere. Companies that should have been fighting over my portfolio treated me like a pariah. Meanwhile, Marcus's business was booming. His LinkedIn showed new client acquisitions weekly, all of them featuring solutions that looked suspiciously familiar. Sarah found me at 3 a.m. on Wednesday, staring at my laptop screen with tears streaming down my face. He got the Microsoft contract, I whispered, pointing at Marcus's latest LinkedIn post. The distributed computing framework they wanted? I designed that architecture in 2019. Spent 6 months perfecting it. And he just sold it to them for $400,000. $400,000. My life's work, monetized by my best friend while I couldn't even get a callback for entry-level positions. Jake, Sarah said softly, sitting beside me on the couch. Maybe it's time we consider moving. Starting fresh somewhere else, away from all this. But that's when I realized the true scope of Marcus's planning. The business registration database search that Sarah had taught me revealed the horrifying truth. Chin Digital Solutions wasn't just registered in California. Marcus had filed for business licenses in Texas, New York, Washington, and Colorado, every state where I'd mentioned considering relocating during our conversations. He wasn't just stealing my present. He was systematically cutting off my future. The man I'd trusted like a brother had spent 2 years studying me, learning my patterns, my dreams, my backup plans. Every casual conversation about wanting to work for Google someday, or maybe trying the startup scene in Austin, or considering that job market in Seattle, he'd been listening, taking notes, preparing to destroy those possibilities before I could even pursue them. I was trapped in a cage I couldn't see, built by someone who knew me better than I knew myself. That Thursday morning, I made the decision that would save my life, though I wouldn't understand why until much later. I was sitting in my home office, staring at another rejection email from Dataflow Systems, a company I'd never even applied to, who somehow felt compelled to inform me that I wouldn't be a good cultural fit for their organization. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, *coffee later. You seem like you could use someone to talk to, *. Something inside me just broke. Not in a destructive way, but like a dam finally giving way to let poisoned water flow out. I was exhausted. Exhausted from fighting a war I couldn't win, from trying to prove my worth to an industry that had been systematically turned against me, from carrying the weight of betrayal that grew heavier every day. Sarah found me deleting Marcus from my contacts. What are you doing? She asked, setting down her coffee mug. I'm done, I said, blocking his number. I'm not fighting him anymore. I'm not exposing him, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm just done. I worked methodically through every platform. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, WhatsApp, Slack, Discord, everywhere Marcus could reach me, I blocked him. I changed my email address, my phone number, even deleted accounts we'd shared. Every mutual friend who might serve as a conduit for information, I either blocked or unfriended entirely. Jake, are you sure about this? Sarah asked, watching me burn down 2 decades of digital connection. What about getting your work back? What about justice? What justice? I laughed bitterly, removing Marcus's access from my Google Drive. He's going to keep making money off my ideas whether I fight him or not. The only difference is whether I torture myself watching it happen. I found a therapist, Dr. Patricia Wong, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Her office was in downtown San Jose, far enough from my usual haunts that I didn't risk running into anyone from the tech community. You're describing what we call strategic disengagement, she told me during our second session. When the cost of fighting becomes greater than the cost of walking away. But he's still out there, I said. Still using my work, still destroying my reputation. And how much control do you actually have over that? None. That was the truth I'd been avoiding. I had no control over Marcus, over the companies that believed his lies, over an industry that had already made up its mind about me. The only thing I could control was my own participation in the cycle. Over the next month, I started freelancing under a completely new professional identity. Jake Martinez became J.M. Rodriguez, a recent graduate, with a portfolio of work that I claimed as personal projects. It wasn't entirely honest, but Marcus had made honest impossible. The difference was immediate. Without my real name attached, my work spoke for itself. J.M. Rodriguez got hired for 3 different projects in 2 weeks, earning more money than I'd seen in 6 months of trying to salvage Jake Martinez's reputation. I was finally sleeping through the night again when Detective Rivera called. Jake, I need you to come down to the station, she said, her voice unusually tense. We found something in Marcus Chen's apartment that you need to see. What kind of something? There was a long pause. The kind that makes me very glad you cut off contact when you did. An hour later, I was sitting in an interview room, staring at photographs spread across a metal table. My throat went dry. We executed a search warrant yesterday, Rivera explained, based on a complaint from his landlord about disturbing behavior. Apparently, his neighbors had been reporting strange noises, people coming and going at odd hours. The photographs showed Marcus's spare bedroom, transformed into something that belonged in a crime documentary. The walls were covered with printed photos of me, Sarah, our house, our cars. Screenshots of my social media posts going back years. Maps with our daily routines marked in red ink. Purchase records for items I couldn't immediately identify, but that made Rivera's jaw tighten. Jake, she said quietly, how long has it been since you've had any contact with Marcus? 38 days, I whispered, unable to look away from a detailed floor plan of my house, complete with notes about our security system and daily schedules. That might have saved your life. Rivera slid another photograph across the table. This one showed Marcus's computer setup, 3 monitors displaying what looked like surveillance footage. I recognized the angles immediately, our front door, our driveway, the coffee shop where Sarah and I had breakfast every Sunday morning. He'd been watching you for months, Rivera said. Hidden cameras, tracking devices on your vehicles, even a listening device planted in your home office. We found the receiver equipment in his bedroom. My hand started shaking again. How long? Based on the timestamps on his recorded footage. Since at least January. Jake, he has over 400 hours of video of you and your wife. Daily routines, conversations, private moments. Her voice dropped. He knew when you left for groceries, when Sarah went to work, when you'd be alone. The room felt like it was shrinking. I thought about all those times over the past few months when I'd felt like someone was watching me. Those moments walking to my car when the hair on the back of my neck would stand up, when I'd turn around but see nothing. I'd assumed it was paranoia from the stress of the job rejections. There's more, Rivera continued, pulling out a manila folder. We found detailed plans, Jake. Written schedules of your movements, notes about your behavioral patterns, and... She hesitated. Purchase records for zip ties, duct tape, and a tranquilizer that's typically used for large animals. The coffee I'd drunk earlier threatened to come back up. What are you saying? We think Marcus was planning to abduct you. The timeline in his notes suggests he was going to make his move 36 days ago, 2 days after you blocked him everywhere. The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. 36 days ago. That would have been the Friday after I deleted him from my contacts. I remembered that day clearly because it was the first time in months I'd actually felt peaceful, like I could breathe again. But he didn't, I managed to say. No, he didn't. And we think it's because when you went completely dark, it disrupted his planning. All of his surveillance had been based on predictable patterns, your regular coffee meetings, your responses to his texts, your social media activity. When you suddenly became a ghost, he couldn't track you the same way. Rivera pulled out a notebook, pages covered in Marcus's handwriting. Look at this entry from 40 days ago. I read the cramped text, * Jake's not responding to any communication. Changed his email, blocked his phone. Sarah's acting suspicious too, keeps checking over her shoulder when she leaves the house. They know something. Need to accelerate timeline before they involve police or leave town, *. Below that, in different colored ink, * can't locate Jay for 3 days straight. Missed his usual Tuesday grocery run, didn't go to the gym Wednesday. Coffee shop says they haven't seen him and Sarah since last week. Where the fuck are they, *. You changed your entire routine when you cut him off, Rivera explained. Started working from home instead of the co-working space, switched grocery stores, avoided all the places he knew you'd be. Without realizing it, you made yourself invisible to his surveillance network. I thought back to those weeks. It was true, after blocking Marcus, I'd naturally started avoiding anywhere we'd spent time together. The coffee shop where we'd had our weekly meetings felt contaminated, so Sarah and I found a new place across town. The gym where he'd introduced me to half the members felt unsafe, so I'd started running in different neighborhoods. I hadn't been trying to hide from him. I'd just been trying to heal in spaces that didn't hold memories of his betrayal. What happened to him? I asked. Where is he now? Rivera's expression darkened. That's the problem, Jake. When we went to arrest him yesterday morning, Marcus was gone. Cleared out completely. His landlord says he broke his lease 3 days ago, paid the penalty in cash. My blood turned cold. So he's still out there. We have APBs out, and we're monitoring his bank accounts and known associates. But Marcus is smart, he's been planning this for a long time. She leaned forward. Jake, I need you to understand how serious this situation is. Based on what we found in that apartment, I believe Marcus Chin was going to kill you. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire I couldn't put out. Marcus was going to kill you, I kept repeating them in my head, but they wouldn't stick. This was Marcus Chin, who used to help me with my math homework. Marcus who cried at my wedding. Marcus who once drove 4 hours to bring me soup when I had the flu. I don't understand, I said, my voice sounding far away. Why would he? We were friends for 20 years. Rivera pulled out another photograph, this one showing a journal entry dated 6 weeks ago. The handwriting was Marcus's, but it looked different, jagged, angry, pressed so hard into the paper that some words had torn through. 20 fucking years of watching Jake stumble into success while I had to fight for every scrap, the entry read. * College professors loved his innovative thinking. Companies lined up to hire him straight out of graduation while I sent out 200 applications for entry-level positions. Even Sarah chose him over me, though he never knew I asked her out first at that party in 2019 *. My heart stopped. He asked Sarah out. Keep reading, Rivera said grimly. * He gets everything handed to him and doesn't even appreciate it. Just coasts on natural talent while I work twice as hard for half the recognition. But not anymore. I've been methodical about this, taking his ideas, poisoning his reputation, watching him spiral. The best part? He trusts me so completely that he comes crying to me every time something goes wrong, *. The handwriting got more erratic toward the bottom of the page. *, but it's not enough anymore. Destroying his career isn't satisfying like it used to be. I want him to feel what real loss is. I want him to understand what it's like when everything gets taken away at once. Sarah, his work, his life, all of it should have been mine from the beginning, *. Jesus Christ, I whispered. Sarah grabbed my hand under the table, her fingers ice cold. There's more, Rivera said. We found communications with someone called D_Rod87, we believe that's David Rodriguez from the emails you showed us. But these messages went beyond just professional sabotage. She showed me printouts of encrypted chat logs. The timestamps went back 3 months. *D_Rod87, you sure about escalating this far? Messing with his career is one thing, but what you're talking about, *. Marcus_dev, he's already dead, he just doesn't know it yet. 2 decades of living in his shadow, watching him waste opportunities one would have killed for. I'm done being the supporting character in Jake Martinez's success story, *. D_Rod87, what about the wife? She's not part of this, *. Marcus_dev, she chose him over me. She gets to live with the consequences, *. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold the papers. Sarah made a small, choked sound beside me. How long? I started, then had to clear my throat. How long had he been planning this? Based on what we found, the surveillance started in January, but the violent ideation goes back much further. Rivera flipped through more pages. We found browser history going back 8 months. Searches for how to make death look accidental, undetectable poisons, remote cabin rentals, Northern California. She pulled out a map marked with red circles. He'd identified 17 different locations within a 3-hour drive where he could take you. Isolated areas, no cell coverage, places where. She trailed off. Where what? Places where bodies don't get found for months, if ever. The fluorescent light suddenly seemed too bright, the air too thin. I thought about all those coffee meetings, all those times I poured my heart out to Marcus about my failures and fears, trusting him completely while he sat there planning my death. The timeline suggests he was going to make his move during your usual Thursday morning coffee meeting 6 weeks ago, Rivera continued. He'd already rented a cabin near Lake Tahoe under a fake name, paid in cash for a 3-week stay. 3 weeks. He'd planned to keep me alive for 3 weeks. What changed his mind? Rivera's expression was grim. You did, Jake. When you cut off all contact and disappeared from his surveillance network, it forced him to improvise. And Marcus doesn't seem like someone who's comfortable improvising. What we found most disturbing, Rivera continued, sliding another folder across the table, was his backup plan. I didn't want to open it, but my hands moved on their own. Inside were printed screenshots of apartment listings, all in cities I'd mentioned wanting to move to during our conversations. Austin, Seattle, Portland, Denver. Each listing was annotated in Marcus's handwriting with notes about proximity to tech hubs and rental market analysis. He wasn't just planning to follow you, Rivera explained. He was planning to get there first. The first screenshot showed a lease agreement for a studio apartment in Austin, signed by Marcus Chen, dated for move-in on October 1st, 3 weeks from now. Below it was a job application to TechFlow Austin, the satellite office I'd mentioned being interested in during one of our coffee meetings 2 months ago. He was going to recreate the same situation in whatever city you moved to, Sarah said, her voice hollow with realization. New city, new identity, but the same systematic sabotage. Rivera nodded. We found similar applications filed in all 4 cities. Different variations of his name, Mark Chen, Marcus C. Chen, M. Chen, but always targeting companies you'd expressed interest in. I flipped through more pages, each one revealing the depth of Marcus's long-term planning. Browser histories showing research into tech communities in each city, LinkedIn profiles for key hiring managers, even real estate searches for apartments within a 5-mile radius of places I'd mentioned wanting to live. The Seattle folder was the most developed, Rivera said, pointing to a thick stack of papers. He'd already interviewed remotely with 3 companies, using refined versions of your stolen projects. One of them offered him a senior position starting in November. Cloudburst Technologies. I'd dreamed about working for them since college, had mentioned it to Marcus probably a dozen times over the years. Now he had a job offer from them, built on my work, waiting for him to arrive in Seattle just in time to destroy any chance I might have had there. But here's what really concerns us, Rivera continued, pulling out a calendar marked with red dates. The timeline shows increasing escalation in each city. In Los Angeles, he was content with career sabotage. But look at the Austin plan. The Austin folder contained more than job applications. There were detailed profiles of Sarah's professional network. She'd mentioned possibly freelancing as a graphic designer if we moved. Marcus had researched her potential clients, her college friends who lived in Texas, even her sister who worked for a marketing firm in Dallas. He was planning to isolate both of you, Rivera said. Destroy your career prospects and Sarah's simultaneously, eliminate your support network, create financial pressure. The Seattle folder was worse. Along with the job applications and apartment lease, there were printouts about Washington state's missing person statistics, remote hiking areas, and weather patterns that would affect search and rescue operations. In Seattle, he wasn't planning to just sabotage you, Rivera said quietly. The evidence suggests he was planning to make you disappear entirely. Sarah's grip on my hand tightened until her nails dug into my palm. How is this possible? How could someone plan something like this for so long without anyone noticing? Because he compartmentalized everything, Rivera explained. David Rodriguez only knew about the career sabotage. Marcus's landlord only saw a quiet tenant who kept odd hours. His new employers saw a talented developer with great references. No one person had enough information to see the full picture except Marcus himself. I stared at the Seattle folder, thinking about how close we'd come to walking directly into Marcus's trap. 2 weeks ago, before Detective Rivera's call, Sarah and I had seriously discussed moving there. We'd even started looking at apartments online, probably the same listings Marcus had already researched. If I hadn't cut him off when I did, we would have arrived in Seattle to find Marcus already established, already poisoning the professional community against me, already preparing whatever final phase he had planned for that isolated cabin in the mountains. Detective Rivera, I said, my voice barely steady, what happens now? How do we find him? Her expression told me everything I needed to know before she said the words. Jake, Marcus Chen has had weeks to prepare his disappearance. He's liquidated his business assets, closed his bank accounts, and abandoned his apartment. We're dealing with someone who's been planning multiple contingencies for months. She leaned back in her chair. Honestly, the best thing you two can do is exactly what you've already been doing. Stay invisible, stay unpredictable, and let us handle the manhunt. But I could see it in her eyes, she wasn't confident they'd find him anytime soon. The first sign that Marcus was still watching came 3 weeks later, when Sarah's laptop mysteriously crashed during a client presentation. It's completely fried, the tech repair shop told her. Looks like someone remotely wiped the hard drive. Professional job too, they knew exactly what they were doing. Sarah had been rebuilding her freelance career under her maiden name, taking on graphic design projects for small businesses outside our usual network. She'd been careful, paranoid even, using a VPN and avoiding any clients connected to the tech industry. But somehow, Marcus had found her. The timing was surgical in its precision. Sarah had been presenting a rebranding proposal to Martinez Family Restaurants, a $50,000 contract that would have solved our immediate financial problems. The laptop died at the exact moment she was showing her final designs, making her look unprofessional and unreliable. The client walked away. "It's him," I said, staring at the black screen. "He's still out there, still watching." Detective Rivera wasn't surprised when I called. "We've been monitoring unusual network activity in your neighborhood," she said. "Someone's been using sophisticated surveillance tools, probably military-grade equipment. They're staying mobile, never broadcasting from the same location twice. So what do we do?" "You disappear. Completely this time. New city, new identities, the whole federal witness protection playbook without the federal support." That night, Sarah and I sat at our kitchen table with a map of the United States spread between us, trying to figure out where someone could truly vanish in 2024. It felt hopeless. Marcus had already demonstrated that he could track us through digital footprints we didn't even know we were leaving. "What about international?" Sarah suggested. "He can't have contingency plans for every country in the world." I was about to respond when my new burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Jake, I know you're reading this. We need to finish our conversation. My blood turned to ice. I showed Sarah the screen, and her face went pale. "You can run to whatever city you want," the next message read. "I'll be waiting when you get there. But Sarah doesn't have to be part of this. Send her away and meet me alone, and I'll let her live her life. He's bluffing," Sarah whispered, but her voice shook. The phone buzzed again. Check your email. Both of you. Sarah grabbed her phone and opened her email app. There, in her inbox, was a message from her own address, sent to every client she'd worked with in the past month. "I need to inform you that I've been subcontracting work to overseas designers without disclosure," the fake email read. The designs I presented were not original work. "I apologize for this deception and understand if you need to terminate our contracts immediately." He hacked my email, Sarah breathed. "Jake, he's destroying my reputation too." My phone rang. "Unknown number." "Answer it," Sarah said. "We need to know what he wants." I hit speakerphone. Marcus's voice filled our kitchen, calm and conversational, like he was calling to invite us to dinner. "Hi Jake." "Hi Sarah. I hope you're both well." "What do you want, Marcus?" I managed to say. "I want what's always been mine. The recognition, the success, the respect that you've been hoarding for 20 years. His voice hardened. "I want you to disappear, Jake. Permanently. Not run away like a coward, actually disappear. And I want everyone to know that Marcus Chen was the real talent behind all your work. You're insane." He laughed, and the sound made my skin crawl. "Am I? I've systematically dismantled your career, isolated you from your professional network, and forced you into hiding. Meanwhile, I'm running a successful consulting firm built on your ideas, and the entire tech industry thinks you're an unreliable flake. Who's really winning here?" The line went quiet for a moment, then Marcus's voice returned, softer now, almost gentle. "Sarah, you don't belong in this. You never asked to be caught between us. Walk away now, file for divorce, start fresh somewhere far from here. I'll make sure you never have to worry about money again." "Go fuck yourself," Sarah said, her voice steady and cold. Marcus sighed. "I was hoping you'd be reasonable. Jake, check your front door." My heart hammered as I approached the front door, Sarah close behind me despite my whispered protests for her to stay back. Through the peephole, I could see our porch was empty, but there was something white tucked under our doormat. An envelope with my name written in Marcus's familiar handwriting. Inside were photographs. Recent photographs. Sarah leaving her yoga class yesterday morning. Me buying groceries at the new store across town we'd switched to for security. Both of us having dinner at Romano's Italian last Friday, the restaurant we'd chosen specifically because Marcus had never been there with us. But the last photo made my knees weak. Sarah and me asleep in our bed, taken from inside our bedroom. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. last Tuesday. "He was in our house," Sarah whispered, her face white as paper. "While we were sleeping, he was in our fucking house." There was a note beneath the photos, "New locks won't keep me out, Jake. I helped you install your security system 3 years ago, remember? I know every blind spot, every weakness. You can't hide from someone who built your defenses, My phone rang again. "Marcus. Did you like my gift?" he asked cheerfully. "I particularly enjoyed watching you two discuss your escape plans over breakfast this morning. Thailand, wasn't it?" Sarah thought the language barrier would slow me down. My stomach dropped. We'd had that conversation at our kitchen table just 6 hours ago, speaking in whispers even though we'd swept the house for listening devices twice. "How?" I managed to ask. "Your new security cameras have excellent audio pickup," Marcus said. "Amazing what you can access when you have the original installation codes. I've been listening to every word you've said for the past month." I looked up at the camera in our living room corner, the one that was supposed to protect us. The little red recording light blinked innocently. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued, his tone becoming businesslike. "Tomorrow night, you're going to drive to the address I'm texting you. Come alone. We're going to have the conversation we should have had 20 years ago about who deserves what in this world. And if I don't, then Sarah's new client, Peterson Graphics, will receive some very interesting footage of her working on their competitors' logo designs at the same time. Industrial espionage is a serious crime in California, Jake. Sarah could face federal charges." Sarah grabbed my arm, shaking her head frantically, but I knew Marcus wasn't bluffing. I'd seen how methodical he was, how perfectly he framed every situation. "There's more," Marcus said, as if reading my hesitation. "David Rodriguez has been very helpful in documenting some inconsistencies in your previous work history. Amazing what comes to light when someone really digs into the timeline of your projects. The Whitman Industries contract from 2022, for instance. Funny how your submitted code contained comments and variable names that David had already registered in his GitHub repository 2 weeks earlier." My blood turned cold. David Rodriguez had been stealing my ideas and backdating them, creating evidence that I was the one plagiarizing. 24 hours, Jake. The address is 4847 Canyon Creek Road, up in the mountains past Boulder Creek. There's a nice cabin there, very private. We can finally settle who's been living whose life. The line went dead. Sarah was already on her laptop, typing frantically. Canyon Creek Road is 47 miles from here, she said. Middle of nowhere, no cell coverage, exactly the kind of place Rivera warned us about. I stared at the photos scattered across our coffee table, evidence of how completely Marcus had invaded our lives, how thoroughly he'd outmaneuvered every precaution we'd taken. He's not giving me a choice, I said quietly. If I don't show up, he destroys your life too. Then we call Rivera right now. But my phone buzzed with one final message, *, police involvement means the Peterson footage gets released immediately. Your choice, *. I spent that night sitting at my computer, cursor blinking on a blank document, trying to write some kind of goodbye letter to Sarah. Every time I started typing, the words felt inadequate. How do you explain to the person you love most that you're walking into what's almost certainly a trap because the alternative is watching them get destroyed piece by piece? Sarah found me there at 4 a.m., slumped over the keyboard. You're not going, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. I don't care what footage he has, what lies he spread. We'll figure something else out. Sarah, you didn't see what he did to David Rodriguez's GitHub history. The man can manufacture evidence that would fool forensic accountants. If he says he has footage of you committing industrial espionage, then he has footage of you committing industrial espionage. She pulled up a chair beside me, and I could see she'd been awake all night too, her eyes red and exhausted. I've been thinking, she said. Marcus made one mistake. He gave you a specific location 24 hours in advance. I looked at her, not understanding. Jake, think about it. He's been watching us for months, controlling every variable, staying one step ahead by keeping us reactive. But now he's committed to a time and place. For the first time since this started, we know where Marcus is going to be. My phone rang before I could respond. Detective Rivera. Jake, we intercepted some interesting chatter last night, she said without preamble. Someone matching Marcus's description rented camping equipment from 3 different outdoor stores in San Jose yesterday. High-end stuff, portable generators, professional-grade camping stoves, industrial tarps. That doesn't sound like camping equipment, I said. It's not. It's cleanup equipment. Jake, whatever he's planning for tonight, he's not intending to leave any evidence behind. Sarah grabbed the phone. Detective Rivera, he gave Jake an address. 4847 Canyon Creek Road. There was a pause. We know that property. It's owned by a shell company registered in Nevada. We've been trying to trace the ownership for 3 days. Jake, under no circumstances should you. He's got leverage, I interrupted, explaining about the fake footage and David Rodriguez's manufactured evidence. Rivera was quiet for a long moment. Jake, I need you to listen carefully. We can protect Sarah from fabricated evidence. We cannot protect her from losing her husband to a psychopath with a cabin full of cleanup equipment. But as she said it, my laptop chimed with a new email. The sender was listed as Sarah's business account, but I knew she was sitting right beside me. The email was addressed to Peterson Graphics, with copies to Sarah's 3 other current clients. Attached was a video file labeled industrial_espionage_evidence_martinez.mp4. Sarah's face went white as she opened it. The video showed her working on logo designs, but the timestamp had been altered to make it look like she was creating identical designs for competing companies simultaneously. The footage was seamless, professionally edited, completely convincing. He already sent it, Sarah whispered. Jake, it's already in their inboxes. The email send time showed 11:47 p.m. last night. Marcus had prepared this insurance policy before he'd even called us. My phone buzzed with a text, * insurance policy activated. Canyon Creek Road, sunset tonight, or Peterson Graphics receives the full portfolio of Sarah's freelance activities tomorrow morning. Your choice just got simpler, *. Detective Rivera was still on the line. What just happened? He played us, I said, my voice flat. He never intended to wait for my decision. He's been manufacturing evidence against Sarah all along. Sarah was already on her phone, calling Peterson Graphics. Mr. Peterson. This is Sarah Martinez. Yes, I saw you called this morning. No, sir, that video is fabricated. I understand your concerns, but... She hung up, her face pale. They've terminated my contract. Jake, he's not just threatening to destroy my reputation, he's already doing it. The next few hours passed in a blur of phone calls and damage control. Each of Sarah's clients had received similar evidence of ethical violations, each piece crafted specifically for their industry and concerns. Peterson Graphics got industrial espionage. Martinez family restaurants received footage suggesting Sarah was sharing their rebranding concepts with competitors. TechFlow Dynamics was sent evidence that Sarah was using unlicensed software for their projects. All of it fake. All of it convincing. All of it already spreading through professional networks faster than we could explain or deny. By noon, Sarah's freelance career was effectively over. 20 years, I said, watching Sarah delete her business social media accounts to stop the spread of Marcus's fabricated evidence. He spent 20 years learning exactly how to destroy both of our lives. Marcus had been patient, methodical, and absolutely ruthless. He hadn't just planned my destruction, he'd studied Sarah, learned her professional vulnerabilities, prepared parallel attacks that would eliminate any financial independence she might have maintained. We were trapped, just like he'd always intended. The sun was setting in 4 hours, and Canyon Creek Road was waiting. At 3 p.m., I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of Big Basin Redwood State Park, 20 minutes from Canyon Creek Road, when Detective Rivera called with news that changed everything. Jake, we found David Rodriguez, she said, her voice tight with urgency. He's been in San Francisco General Hospital for the past 6 days. Severe head trauma, broken ribs, internal bleeding. He's been in a medically induced coma since last Tuesday. My blood went cold. Last Tuesday was when Marcus sent us those photos. Gets worse. Rodriguez's neighbor saw him arguing with someone in his driveway around midnight Monday. Description matches Marcus perfectly. Jake, I think David tried to back out of whatever they had planned, and Marcus decided he was a liability. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Is David going to make it? Touch and go. But his laptop survived, and our tech team cracked his encrypted files an hour ago. Jake, the evidence Marcus claimed David had manufactured against you. It doesn't exist. The GitHub repositories, the backdated code comments, all of it, David never created any of it. The implication hit me like a physical blow. So Marcus was bluffing about framing me for plagiarism. Completely. But here's what's really interesting, we found David's real communications with Marcus. Turns out David had been trying to extract himself from their arrangement for weeks. He'd gotten scared when he realized how far Marcus was willing to go. Rivera's voice dropped. Jake, according to David's notes, Marcus never intended to honor any deal tonight. The cabin at Canyon Creek Road? It's not just isolated, it's equipped. David helped Marcus transport equipment there 3 weeks ago, before he tried to back out. Industrial-grade plastic sheeting, quicklime, power tools. My mouth went dry. Equipment for what? Body disposal. Marcus has been planning to kill you from the beginning. The leverage against Sarah, the manufactured evidence, even giving you 24 hours notice, it was all theater to make you feel like you had control over the situation. I stared through my windshield at the massive redwood trees, their shadows growing longer as the sun dropped toward the horizon. Then why did he bother with the elaborate setup? Why not just? Because Marcus doesn't just want you dead, Jake. He wants you to understand that he outsmarted you. David's notes describe it as elaborate psychological torture designed to maximize Jake's sense of helplessness before termination. The clinical language made my stomach turn. This wasn't passion or jealousy anymore, it was methodical sadism. There's more, Rivera continued. We tracked the shell company that owns the Canyon Creek property. It's registered to MC Digital Solutions, incorporated in Nevada 6 months ago. Marcus has been planning this location since March. 6 months. While I'd been trusting him completely, sharing my deepest insecurities over coffee, Marcus had been preparing a place to murder me. Detective Rivera, what about the footage he has of Sarah? Even if the plagiarism evidence is fake, he's already destroyed her client relationships. That's the thing, Jake. According to David's files, Marcus never had any real footage of Sarah doing anything unethical. The videos he sent to her clients were deep fakes, sophisticated, but fabricated. We can prove they're fake, but it'll take time to clear her reputation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, * 1 hour, Jake. Don't keep me waiting. I've got champagne chilling to celebrate the end of our friendship, *. The casual tone made my skin crawl. Marcus was sitting in that cabin right now, probably watching the access road through binoculars, counting down the minutes until he could finally act out 20 years of buried resentment. Jake, you cannot go to that cabin, Rivera said. We've got units moving into position, but Canyon Creek Road is a single-lane mountain route with no cell coverage. If something goes wrong. But my phone was already ringing with a call from Sarah. Jake, where are you? Her voice was strained, panicked. Someone just tried to break into the house. I'm locked in the bathroom upstairs, but I can hear them moving around downstairs. My heart stopped. Call 911 right now. I already did, but they said the earliest response time is 25 minutes. Jake, I think whoever's down there is looking for something specific. They're not taking anything, just searching. Rivera was shouting something, but I couldn't focus on her words. Marcus had played me again. While I'd been sitting here planning my approach to Canyon Creek Road, he'd sent someone to our house. Sarah, stay where you are and don't make any noise, I said, already starting my car. I'm coming home. No, she whispered urgently. Jake, what if this is exactly what he wants? What if he's trying to draw you away from the meeting point? She was right. This was Marcus's game, and he was still 3 moves ahead. But I couldn't sit in a parking lot while someone ransacked our home with Sarah trapped upstairs. My phone buzzed with another text, * change of plans, Jake. Come home. We're having the party here instead, *. I floored the accelerator, my Honda Civic screaming down Highway 9 toward home while Detective Rivera's voice crackled through my phone speaker, competing with static from the mountain interference. Jake, do not go to your house. We have units 3 minutes out from your location. The call cut to dead air as I hit a cell tower dead zone. I was alone now, racing through the gathering dusk with my headlights cutting through shadows that seemed to reach across the asphalt like Marcus's influence had reached across every aspect of my life. My phone buzzed with a text that somehow came through despite the poor signal, * Sarah's fine, by the way. Just having a conversation about old times. Did you know she almost said yes when I asked her out in 2019? She told me all about how she agonized over the decision for weeks, *. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The timestamp on the message was from 30 seconds ago, which meant Marcus was texting me in real time while doing God knows what to my wife. Another message, * she's sitting right here next to me, Jake. Want to say hi to your husband, Sarah, *. Then, impossibly, a voice message in Sarah's voice, but wrong somehow, too controlled, like someone was coaching her words, Jake, I'm okay. Marcus just wants to talk. He's explaining how everything got so complicated between you two. Maybe if you just come home, we can work this all out. The inflection was off. Sarah never said, work this all out, she said, figure this out, or sort this out. Marcus was feeding her lines, probably with a gun pointed at her head. I took the turn onto Maple Street doing 50 in a 35 zone, my tires screaming against the asphalt. Our house was dark except for the living room lamp, the same lamp that had been on when I'd left. Everything looked normal from the outside, which somehow made it more terrifying. I parked 3 houses down and approached on foot, staying in the shadows between streetlights. Detective Rivera had said police units were close, but I couldn't wait for backup while Marcus held Sarah hostage in our own home. Through our living room window, I could see 2 figures on the couch. Sarah was sitting unnaturally straight, her hands folded in her lap in a way that suggested restraints I couldn't see. Marcus sat beside her, relaxed and casual, scrolling through what looked like my laptop. He was wearing the blue polo shirt I bought him for his birthday last year. The one he'd hugged me for, telling me I had great taste and that he'd treasure it forever. Now he was wearing it while terrorizing my wife in my living room, the physical embodiment of how thoroughly he'd perverted 20 years of friendship. My phone vibrated with another message. Asterisk, I can see you crouching behind the Henderson's mailbox, Jake. Very subtle. Why don't you come inside so we can finish this properly, asterisk. Fuck. He'd been watching the street, waiting for me to arrive exactly like this. I looked up at our bedroom window and saw the faint glow of electronics. He'd set up a surveillance station in our own house. Asterisk, you have exactly 60 seconds to walk through your front door, or Sarah and I are going to take a drive up to Canyon Creek Road together. I bet she'd love to see the cabin I prepared for you, asterisk. The threat was clear. Marcus had never intended for me to meet him at the cabin alone. His real plan had always been to force me to choose between walking into his trap or letting him take Sarah to that remote location with its plastic sheeting and power tools. I stood up from behind the mailbox, my legs unsteady, and walked toward my own front door like a condemned man approaching the gallows. Through the window, I could see Marcus smile and wave, as if I was arriving for a dinner party instead of whatever final act he choreographed. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Marcus still had keys from when he'd house sat for us last Christmas. Another small trust, weaponized. Jake. Marcus called out cheerfully as I stepped inside. Perfect timing. Sarah and I were just discussing your college years. Did you know she's never seen your old portfolio from Professor Martinez's advanced algorithms class? The one that got you the internship at Dataflow? Sarah's eyes met mine across the room, and I could see the terror she was trying to hide. Her wrists were zip-tied behind her back, barely visible beneath the throw pillow Marcus had positioned to conceal them. Hello, Marcus, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I got your messages. Hello, Marcus, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I got your messages. Marcus beamed at me like we were old friends meeting for drinks. Jake. Come in, come in. Don't just stand there in the doorway like a stranger. He gestured to the armchair across from the couch, my favorite reading spot, now positioned to give him a clear line of sight to both me and the front door. Sarah looks uncomfortable, I said, not moving from the entryway. Why don't you let her go upstairs? This is between us. Oh, but Sarah's been such good company, Marcus replied, his hand resting casually on her shoulder. I could see her flinch at his touch. We've been having the most fascinating conversation about trust. About how people can live together for years without really knowing each other. He picked up my laptop from the coffee table, angling the screen so I could see it. For instance, did you know Sarah's been keeping a journal about your depression? Very detailed entries about your sleep patterns, your anxiety attacks, your growing paranoia about your career failures. My stomach dropped. Sarah's private journal, the one she'd used to process her own stress about watching me fall apart over the past year. March 15th, Marcus read aloud. Jake barely slept again last night. Found him at 3 a.m. staring at job applications he's too scared to submit. I'm starting to worry he's having some kind of breakdown. He keeps talking about feeling like someone's sabotaging him, but that's impossible. Who would do something like that? Sarah's face burned with embarrassment and fury. Marcus chuckled and scrolled down. Oh, this one's good. April 22nd, Jake's convinced that the tech flow rejection was personal, that someone poisoned them against him. I suggested he talk to a therapist about these paranoid thoughts. Maybe I should call Dr. Peterson myself. Jake's starting to scare me sometimes. Stop, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. But the best entry is from May 8th, Marcus continued, his voice taking on a mock sympathetic tone. I love Jake, but I'm exhausted from managing his mental health. Every day is another crisis, another conspiracy theory, another reason why the world is against him. Sometimes I fantasize about what my life would be like if I'd married someone stable. Someone successful. Someone who didn't need constant reassurance just to function. The words hit me like physical blows. I'd known Sarah was struggling with my problems, but seeing her private thoughts laid bare, thoughts she'd never intended for me to see, especially not like this, felt like another betrayal layered on top of Marcus's. I never meant for you to read that, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Jake, you have to understand, I was just. She was being honest, Marcus interrupted. Finally. Do you know what she wrote about me, Jake? After I helped fix her laptop last month while you were out job hunting. He scrolled to another entry, but I couldn't bring myself to look. The violation was too complete, too intimate. Marcus is everything Jake used to be, confident, successful, emotionally stable. I can see why they were such good friends before Jake's career started falling apart. Marcus still believes in Jake's potential, even when Jake doesn't believe in himself. I wish Jake could see himself through Marcus's eyes. Marcus closed the laptop with a satisfied smile. She wishes you could see yourself through my eyes, Jake. Well, tonight's your lucky night. I'm going to show you exactly how I see you. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind used for interviews or lectures. 20 years of friendship, Jake. 20 years of listening to you complain, watching you coast on natural talent while I work twice as hard for half the recognition. I've been documenting it all. He pressed play, and my own voice filled the living room. Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve any of this success, you know. Like I'm just fooling everyone and eventually they'll figure out I'm not as smart as they think I am. It was from a conversation we'd had 6 months ago, during one of our weekly coffee meetings. I'd been having a particularly bad week of imposter syndrome, and Marcus had been so supportive, so understanding. Here's another good one, Marcus said, fast-forwarding the recording. My voice again. Sarah's been so patient with my anxiety, but I can see it's wearing on her. God, Marcus, what if I lose everything? My career, my wife, my whole life. What if I'm just not cut out for any of this? Marcus stopped the recording and looked at me with mock pity. What if, indeed? Turns out you were more prophetic than you realized. The recording clicked off, and Marcus set the device on the coffee table like evidence in a trial. 20 years of your pathetic self-doubt, all documented. You know what the beautiful irony is, Jake? You were right to feel like a fraud. Because while you were having your little identity crisis, I was proving that I could do everything you did, but better. You're sick, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm successful, Marcus corrected. Chin Digital Solutions cleared $1.2 million in revenue this year. All built on ideas you were too weak to execute properly. I took your concepts and turned them into something meaningful. I glanced toward the window, hoping to see police lights, but the street remained dark. Sarah caught my eye and mouthed something I couldn't understand, then tilted her head slightly toward the kitchen. That's when I heard it, the faint creak of our back door opening. Marcus was still talking, lost in his monologue of justified revenge, when Detective Rivera's voice cut through the room like a blade. Marcus Chin, put your hands where I can see them. Marcus spun around, his face shifting from smugness to rage in an instant. Two officers flanked Rivera, weapons drawn, having entered through the kitchen while Marcus had been focused on his performance. This is private property, Marcus snarled. You can't just. We can when there's an active hostage situation, Rivera replied calmly. Step away from Mrs. Martinez. Now. For a moment, Marcus looked like he might run or fight, his eyes darting between the officers and the front door. Then something shifted in his expression, a cold calculation that made my blood freeze. You know what, Jake, he said, his voice suddenly calm again. You're right. I am sick. And I realized something sitting here tonight, listening to your wife's journal entries about how much she wishes you were more like me. He reached into his other jacket pocket, and I saw Rivera tense. I spent 2 years planning your destruction, documenting every weakness, every failure, every moment of self-doubt. I was going to make it last for weeks up at that cabin. Marcus pulled out a thick manila envelope. But you know what? You cutting me off, disappearing, forcing me to rush everything, you actually saved me from making a terrible mistake. Rivera took a step closer. What mistake, Marcus? Marcus looked directly at me, and for just a moment, I saw something that might have been the friend I'd once known. I was going to kill you, Jake. Had it all planned out. But sitting here tonight, watching you walk through that door knowing it was probably a trap, seeing how much you love Sarah, how much you're willing to sacrifice for her. I realized something. He tossed the envelope onto the coffee table. It spilled open, revealing dozens of photos and documents, all the evidence of his surveillance, his planning, his systematic destruction of my life. You were never my enemy, Marcus said quietly. I was. I've been running from my own failures for so long that I convinced myself they were your fault. But the truth is, Jake, you cutting me off saved both our lives. Because if I'd gone through with killing you, I'd have become something I could never come back from. The officers moved in as Marcus raised his hands in surrender. I need help, he said, his voice breaking. I need serious psychiatric help. As they cuffed him, Marcus looked back at me one last time. Thank you, Jake. For walking away when you did. For refusing to let me turn you into my victim or myself into your killer. 3 months later, I was sitting in Dr. Wong's office, reading a letter that Marcus had written from the psychiatric facility where he was receiving treatment. I've been thinking about what you said in our last session, Dr. Wong said as I finished reading. About how cutting someone off can feel like giving up, like letting them win. I folded Marcus's letter, an apology that would take me years to fully process, and looked out her window at the San Francisco skyline. Sarah and I had moved here 6 weeks ago, both of us starting fresh with new careers, new names, new lives built on honest foundations. I used to think that walking away from Marcus was the coward's choice, I said. That I should have fought him, exposed him, gotten revenge. And now. I smiled, thinking about Sarah's new graphic design studio, about my position at a small tech startup where nobody knew about my past reputation, about the peaceful sleep that had finally returned to our lives. Now I know that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone else's destruction, including your own. I didn't save my life by cutting Marcus off because it protected me from him. I saved my life because it protected me from becoming him. The letter in my lap was evidence that Marcus was slowly finding his way back to sanity, but even if he hadn't, the choice to walk away had been the right one. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop playing someone else's game.